Hi, welcome to the fourth in our series talking to people involved and managing clean tech clusters throughout Southeast Asia. I'd like to introduce Mr. Nagaraja from the CTI PFAN network.
That's right.
Thank you for taking time to talk to us today. I wanted to find out a little bit more about what PFAN's doing and explain what's going on today with the business plan competition and how your outreach to companies involved in clean tech.
All right. Thank you for having me here.
Very welcome.
CTI PFAN now has operations in almost all the developing countries except probably in Central Asia.
Okay.
How we go about doing this is that we do a call for proposal in each region based on the availability of budget and timelines and such considerations. We reach out to the clean energy community through our associations and networking partners like the trade associations, through clean energy and energy efficiency associations,
Okay.
whether it is solar, wind, biomass, biogas. It could be anything as long as it results in a reduction in GHG gases.
Yep.
So we have built a network of partners and members who help us in reaching out to this community in the region, whether it is Asia, Africa, or Latin America. You asked specifically about AFSEF?
Yeah.
Okay. With that background, let me tell you that AFSEF 4, this is the fourth edition, and it's annual. We launched this in July 2013. What we did was, again, like I said, reached out to various people through associations and network members.
Like the ADB, Asian Development Bank.
We do have, they come under a category like they are supporters for us by funding the event itself.
Okay.
Like in the case of ADB, they have a scheme called Energy for All, under which they support the projects which are shortlisted by PFAN.
Yep.
And these are the schemes, this particular program actually helps the off-grid, places like the villages and things which do not have power as such. So this off-grid power helps them in getting the basic necessity like power.
Okay.
So this is one area where ADB has been supporting us for the last couple of years, and it is a fruitful ongoing partnership. Similarly, we have REAP, that is Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership. This is based out of Vienna in Austria. We are doing 3 calls proposal with them, 2 in Africa and 1 in India right now.
Okay.
And the 10th call of proposal, we are doing it jointly. There is also other partners who help us. As you have seen today, the main promoters are USAID, the Japanese government through the CTI and member countries, who are by and large the European countries, and you also have Australia.
Yep. Good. I'm glad they're
there. So therefore, as you can see, the fundamental reason for existence of CTI is that while you have banks, multilateral banks, and funding agencies, CTI PFAN focuses on, it is a multilateral agency under UNCCC, and the idea is to help those people who require funding, and at the same time bring them to the people who have funding but are looking for good projects. So that we call that as the missing middle, you can say, sort of a trademark. And but actually that is how it plays out, that on the one hand you have good projects, on the other hand you've got people who would like to fund them, but they don't shake hands either because they don't know each other or because they can't speak each other's language.
Yeah, that's a big challenge.
That's a big challenge.
Very big challenge.
So that's where I think the competency and the utility of benefits of PFAN has played out in the market. As you can see, it's since 2005-06 it is there, and we are in 2014 now.
How much funding have you actually managed to secure through this?
Say about $500 million.
Wow, that's a
And
lot of money.
yes, and you see, the way we define our success is when we actually see that the funding happens for the projects that we have chosen. So therefore, it's a clear-cut definition for people who are supporting the PFAN in terms of how it has actually helped in bringing down the GHG gases, how it has helped small and medium sector to scale up in the renewables energy and energy efficiency sector. So therefore, it is a clear definition of how the funding will be utilized, how we will define our success, and how we are going to utilize this for capacity building, for ensuring that there is adequate amount of mentoring and coaching, which is given pro bono to the mentors, pro bono to the developers
Through mentors.
through mentorship that is done. It's a beautiful way of putting the private-public partnership because the mentors are private enterprises.
Yep.
These are chartered accountants and investment bankers, people who have an idea, who have practical knowledge, who have the qualification in the geographies that we work. So these are the people who understand the requirements of an investor, whether an equity investor or whether a lender, and we are able to position the projects according to the needs of the market. But most important is when we do the mentoring, we help the developers to significantly reduce the project risk.
Yeah, I think it's communication and understanding what the risks are. It's a fairly structured process, isn't it? Because you make a submission to the business plan competition under ASF, and then you're assessed, and then you might be shortlisted as a semi-finalist. Then you go through, pull me up if I'm wrong here, then you go through a process of having some phone coaching, and then they call the successful semi-finalists into a program, whether it's 2 days or 1 day coaching.
It is more than that. See, it's about 4 days of coaching.
Wow, okay. All right.
And also, it's not that it is sort of a beginning to end 4 days. So it is spread over a period of 6 months. So what happens is that we utilize the time carefully in terms of getting the developer to understand the needs and understand the requirements of a lender or an investor. And we gradually help them to scale up their knowledge in terms of business plan, in terms of financial model, in terms of how you pitch to the investor and what are the risks that they should look for and such things, so that the time that is allotted to us is spent over a period of time in educating in the developer in terms of making him appreciate the other man's point of view.
Yeah, that's a very big. You can see that today, that people are really starting to say, I have to answer this question. I have to work this particular thing into my presentation.
That makes us happy.
Yeah, but you can really see it because they're naturally flowing and they go, oh, I've got to include investment return. Oh, I've got to include offtake. Oh, I've got to include this.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very funny to watch.
And it is so startling how people change when this is. Yesterday we had a sort of a role playing in one of the workshops that we conducted for these people, and the way the questions came from the same person when he was wearing the hat of an investor versus wearing the hat of a developer was really different.
So they understood it.
Yes, so
they picked
people just don't realize that when you sit on the other side of the table, how the same thing can look very different.
That wasn't that terrible saying that, banks are terrible people. They give you money when you don't need it, and then when you don't have it, they ask for it back. But it's a certain case of when you're giving money to somebody to go into a project, the first question is, am I going to get my money back?
Absolutely, and what is wrong with that?
No, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But unfortunately, many projects don't happen because of one of the things that we're trying to get across in this series is understanding how people can actually take advantage of the resources that are available to them.
Yes.
Now, many countries have clean tech organisations or government-sponsored things, but the multilateral stuff with ADB, PFAN, some of the other networks, that's very interesting because it then gives people an ability to understand the international risk levels and international benchmarks.
True.
So today you've got 10 finalists.
Yes.
How many people submitted to the competition?
50.
Okay.
So 50, in the first round, we shortlisted them to about 20.
Yep.
And from 20, we selected the 10. And today, the opportunity is given to the 10 people to make their presentation to the investment community. We have nearly 50 invitees who are interested in clean technology and who are present today and who would be looking at their presentation. And we hope that it will attract the attention of some of the investors, where we can then help them to take it forward in terms of actually seeing that the funding happens.
Yeah, I think that's very important as well. It was funny. Over lunch, we just finished lunch, and I sat next to a lady who was born in Chennai but lives in Delhi, and she was telling me about her business, and she was a semi-finalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I've listened to the presentations this morning, and some of them were good, but the lady who I had lunch with was the one who was, oh, that's interesting. I'll have a bit more of a look at that. So hopefully we may end up having that lady as a customer on TDN and help promote their technology.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be very good for us. But so after they win the competition, what follows up from there?
It's like this. See, whether you win or not, we support all the finalists.
Okay.
So when you win, today what we have done is that we have instituted a sort of a reward, which is 10 days of additional coaching for the winner. That's a significant support in terms of helping the winner to close on the finance. Therefore, however, the others also get what we call as a supplementary coaching, that is additionally, say, another 2 days, so that we can bring them closer to the to financing the transaction. What happens is that when they meet with the investors today, it's quite possible, and we hope so, that somebody will be interested in that, in which case we help them in terms of negotiation, in terms of the terms of investment, help them in terms of subsequently valuation, which is so critical, because the how much of equity you want to give away
Is based on how much your business is really worth.
is valued. So
Yeah.
that is some area which is so specialized that it is the domain of investment bankers and chartered accountants.
And they're not going to tell us how they do it.
No, I don't mind telling you.
No, it's a bit of a black art, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more like how you mentally tune yourself to the language.
Yeah. It is a very different language. I remember when I actually went through this process in the first RCEF competition. I was the CEO of a biogas developer. And I came out of the end of that process thinking, I can't speak these people's language.
That makes us safe.
Yes, well, no, it does make you safe for now. But it was. I came out of that thinking, no, these are people who don't want to do business with me. And it was interesting to having gone through that process a couple of times and then seeing what people get to. I suspect a little bit that investors sort of have a language, but they also don't know exactly what they're looking for as well.
It's like this. See, you need to bucket the investors. Investors are interested in a particular geography.
Yep.
And you take them a project which is outside the geography, they are not interested.
Yep.
Similarly, they have a range of return which they have promised to their investors.
Yeah, they have heard.
So therefore, if it is a question of how you are going to position your returns in a project, based on that, you may have to choose which investor you want to go. For example, if you have an impact, socially, sustainable project, then you should go to impact investors.
Who may not want such a high IRR.
Yeah, who may be more satisfied with balancing a modest return with how it impacts the lives of the people. You will also have people who are commercially oriented, because there is a place for everybody in the market. So therefore, we should know how to bucket the investors in terms of geography, returns, and also the time that is available. Some projects take long duration. So if they want the funding for say 7, 8, 9 years, no point in going to somebody who has a window of 5 years. So and at the same time, many of them have this clear-cut demarcation that I would do up to 3 million. Somebody would say my sweet spot is 10 to 15 million. So it is important to know the market, how the players have positioned themselves, what is the risk appetite, what has been their track record, what is their ability to support a particular project, and then you do the matchmaking. Otherwise, you would be wasting everybody's time.
I think it's a matter of being in the market to find out this particular fund will only invest in projects above 10 million. They have a hurdle rate of 25%. They will not touch certain countries, and their focus is, say, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore. And those, knowing that is really a matter of being in the industry, because these funds will not go around and put and think, hello, I am Fund X, I am interested in solar and hydro, and I'm not interested in biogas or waste to energy or anything exotic, and I'm only interested in doing this in Vietnam and the Philippines. They just don't talk like that. You've just got to have intermediaries to do it.
You said it.
Yeah.
But see, it is like this. It is not practical to think that every person can be a specialist in everything. So when you say intermediate, it is like this. It is there in every business, including your business.
Yeah, I just like to think I can do everything. I'm not joking. I was just thinking there going, but I think you have to have an understanding of...
Yes, because
yeah.
if everybody can be a specialist in everything, then you don't need. But the fact is that you are specialized in a particular area, like your energy, and you are a power producer. So do it the best way you can.
Yeah.
And if you are outsourcing a few things, you are outsourcing it for a definite reason. You are not going to raise capital every year. So if you are going to raise capital, say once in 5 years, you don't want to acquire skills, putting so much of time and effort, which is going to help you once. Like if you are going to construct a building, you are not going to be an architect and an engineer, are you?
No, you're going to
It's
be a
the same
builder.
thing.
You're going to be a builder.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you are a builder, then it is you can understand that you need to be an architect or an engineer. But if you are just putting a factory, you are taking outside help.
Yeah. Well, that gets the point. But the point about not being an engineer or being an architect or being a builder, under the Japanese system, they're all three. So yeah, that's a sorry to be. So there's that case that when you go across borders, I've got two things I want to talk to you about. The first is many companies will have a good idea or have a good technology, and they'll be approached to have someone say, "Oh, I can provide you with financial assistance, and I would know where the money is." Companies that come in the door to us who have not a bad idea and have a good product, and they have a management team which has people in it that maybe shouldn't be there, and some who are very good and some who are quote unquote the finance guy or the business guy, and they don't have any of this domain knowledge. They're getting into this the first time, and these are someone that the principal might know or the principal has been referred to. One of the great challenges in this environment is getting people who are qualified and know what they talk about. Thing is,
Yes.
This is all wonderful what you're doing, and it's terrific that you're helping businesses and looking at the environmental damages.
Uh-huh.
But who's paying for this? How is this all being paid for? Because these mentors it costs them money. Is this being paid for by USAID and the Japanese and donor governments, or how's that working?
Yeah, it's like this. See, like I said a little bit earlier, I think that is a private-public partnership.
Okay.
So what happens is that while the PFAN as a entity is getting supported through, like you rightly said, USAID, the OECD countries, some of them, or the CTA countries, that's a better way of putting it, and then let's say it's the Japanese government, the burden on the developer is nil for having received all this support in terms of
Which is
mentoring.
fantastic.
So the idea is that this is the way that we help the developing countries in reduction of GHG gases, and at the same time help the members scale up their capability, their economic sustainability as well as environmental sustainability and social sustainability. We call it as a triple bottom line, to make sure that these people will prosper, get access to market related funding, and they are on their own.
I mean, a company being a finalist in this business competition will give international finance organisations a lot more confidence.
Credibility.
Yeah, because I'll say it's been pre-screened by PFAN, and they've worked through some of the issues. And the beauty of it is that someone coming from this process will be able to tell a financier when they turn around and say, okay, well, what are the problems? They'll be able to lay out, these are the things that we need to address, this is how we're going to address them, and we think it's got it covered. Now, the financiers will probably turn around and say, oh, well, you've missed this, this, this. But at least the process is not coming in from a complete standing start. You've got momentum.
Absolutely. What happens is that if somebody has done this much of work, the person who is investing there or the person who is lending to such an entity, half his job is done.
Yeah.
So, and also these people are now trained to understand the other man's point of view as to why such a question is being asked
Yep.
and how he should respond and why he should respond.
Yep.
So given that point, it helps both sides. That on the one side you are able to you do some capacity building, on the other side you are able to cut short the due diligence that happens by making sure that the developers are well prepared before they reach to outside financing.
Well, look, we're very keen to work with promoting what you're doing on techdevnet.com.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. When is your next competition going to be in Africa?
Africa, we have it right now. The call for proposal is open for East Africa.
Okay.
I think it is the last date for submission of proposal is in April, and we will have a workshop for the developers, and subsequently a similar investor forum we would have in Africa sometimes later part of this year. It will be the third edition in Africa, East Africa. We just finished one in West Africa, and most probably we would have one more in West Africa this year.
Great, because I've definitely got someone in West Africa who you should talk to, who we've been talking
Lovely.
to.
I'll be glad if you can just send an introductory mail and then we will catch up.
Yeah, well, I will. I'd be delighted, and then I know exactly. George, you know who I'm talking about. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Nice to talk to you.
Same here, and it's a good thing that you're doing, and I'm happy that if you can send the message out to the community who can benefit from the services that we provide.
No doubt they can. Thanks a lot. Good
Thank
on
you so much.
Terrific.